The galaxy was in chaos, torn apart by the relentless advance of the Axalrith Dominion. For centuries, they had been an unstoppable force, sweeping through systems with their superior technology and brutal efficiency. Worlds once teeming with life were now silent, reduced to nothing more than charred husks floating in the void. It wasn't just the sheer power of the Axalrith that made them terrifying, it was their methodical precision. Each invasion followed a pattern. They would scan a planet's defenses, learn its weaknesses, and obliterate it in a matter of days. Resistance was futile. In the grand scheme of the galaxy, humanity was insignificant. Their emergence as a spacefaring species had been relatively recent, and their technology lagged behind most of the other races in the Galactic Coalition. Once they had hoped the Coalition would protect them, that the combined might of dozens of advanced civilizations would stand firm against the Axalrith. But the Coalition was crumbling. One by one, its member races fell, unable to withstand the sheer might of the invaders. Fleets that had stood for millennia were now nothing more than debris scattered across battlefields light years wide. Earth had been spared for a time, only because the Axalrith's warpath had yet to reach the Sol system. But as more and more planets fell, humanity's luck was running out. Whispers of the Dominion's impending arrival echoed through the remaining human colonies. Refugees from other systems poured into the Sol sector, bringing with them stories of horrors: planets consumed, species enslaved, entire fleets annihilated without a chance to fire back. The fear was palpable. Humanity was not prepared to face such a foe, but they had no choice. The last few years had seen humanity fighting a desperate, defensive war. They had thrown everything they had into holding the line, but every battle seemed to end the same way, with retreat. Their homeworlds were on the verge of collapse, their resources stretched thin. The once thriving colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter had been stripped of their fleets, all redirected to the war effort. Now, the bulk of humanity's forces orbited Earth, a last bastion against the approaching storm. Admiral Thomas Riker stood aboard the bridge of the UNS Dauntless, one of humanity's last remaining capital ships. He was a man hardened by years of war, his face lined with the weight of countless decisions. The Admiral had been fighting the Axalrith for years, watching friends and allies perish under the relentless assault. His tactical genius had allowed the human fleet to survive longer than anyone had expected, but even he knew that time was running out. Beside him stood Captain Elena Marquez, commander of one of humanity's few remaining strike forces. She was young for her position, but her unwavering determination had earned her the respect of her crew and the admiration of her superiors. Together, they represented humanity's final stand, a small but defiant group of leaders who refused to accept defeat, even in the face of insurmountable odds. Our forces are outmatched, outgunned, and exhausted, Riker said grimly, gazing out at the flickering holographic display of the Sol system. But we won't abandon Earth. We stand and fight. Marquez nodded, her jaw set in determination. We'll give them hell, Admiral. If this is the end, we'll make sure the Axalrith remember humanity. It was a sentiment echoed by every soldier and crew member in the human fleet. They knew they couldn't win, but they weren't about to surrender. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, but they would fight to the last breath to protect their home. Amidst the preparations for battle, rumors began to spread through the ranks of humanity's forces. It had started as nothing more than whispered legends, passed between soldiers and technicians during long shifts. They spoke of an ancient fleet long lost to time that was said to possess unimaginable power. The Black Armada, as it was called, was rumored to be capable of single-handedly turning the tide of any battle. But to most, it was just a myth. After all, no one had ever seen it. The myth had origins in ancient records uncovered during humanity's early days of space exploration. Hidden within the archives of a forgotten civilization, these records hinted at a fleet built in a time before the rise of modern galactic powers. It was said that this fleet had been designed not just for war, but for something greater, a last defense against an unknown threat that never materialized. According to the legends, the Black Armada had been hidden away, waiting for the right moment to awaken. Most dismissed the stories as wishful thinking, a comforting tale in dark times. But there were those who believed. Some of humanity's top scientists and strategists had begun searching for clues, combing through old star charts and archaeological findings, hoping to locate the fabled Armada. It was a long shot, but as the Zalrith drew closer, humanity needed every shred of hope it could find. In a secret briefing, Admiral Riker had been informed of the search. He wasn't one for myths, but even he had to admit that humanity needed a miracle. If there's any truth to this Black Armada, he had said, we need to find it. Fast. The Zalrith fleet was approaching. Their ships, dark and foreboding, blotted out the stars as they entered the Sol system. Earth's defense grid was online, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. The alien fleet was enormous, a juggernaut that dwarfed anything humanity had ever faced. Thousands of ships, armed with weapons that could tear through even the toughest of shields, advanced in perfect formation. Alarms blared across human space stations and ships. The final battle was about to begin. Riker stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, watching as the Zalrith fleet closed in. We either stand and fight, or we retreat and leave Earth undefended, he said, his voice grim. We can't abandon Earth, Marquez replied. It's all we have left. The decision was made. Humanity would make its final stand here, at the very heart of its civilization. The odds were impossible, but they had no other choice. Ships powered up their weapons, soldiers prepared for battle, and across the galaxy, humanity held its breath. As the Zalrith fleet loomed ever closer, a final, desperate message was transmitted to all human forces. This is it. For Earth and for humanity, we fight. The Galactic Coalition, once thought of as a bastion of unity and strength, was crumbling. The alien races that had once stood shoulder to shoulder with humanity in their desperate attempt to fend off the Zalrith dominion were now scattered. The Jarkons, whose immense warships had been feared across the galaxy, were no more, their fleets annihilated in a matter of weeks. The once proud Silthar, a race of brilliant strategists, had seen their armadas torn apart, their homeworld left in ruins. One by one, the great civilizations that had held the galaxy in balance fell to the Dominion's onslaught. With each defeat, hope in the Coalition's survival waned. The galactic corridors were filled with panic, and communication between species became sporadic. Reports of entire fleets destroyed without a single survivor reached the remaining Coalition forces, sending waves of fear through every corner of the Alliance. Their once mighty fleets, symbols of galactic order, had been reduced to wreckage. In their desperation, many species withdrew from the conflict altogether, pulling their forces back to defend their own worlds, abandoning the fight for a united defense. Humanity, now isolated, was left to face the impending storm alone. For them, there was no retreat. Earth, the cradle of their civilization, was the last line of defense, and they had no option but to fight to the bitter end. Though the Coalition had disintegrated, humanity refused to surrender. The collapse of their allies only strengthened their resolve. The burden of defending the galaxy fell squarely on their shoulders, and the men and women of the human fleet prepared to meet their fate with steely determination. At the heart of this defense was Admiral Thomas Riker. His unshakable resolve had carried humanity through countless battles, and now, standing aboard the UN's Dauntless, he knew this was the ultimate test. Riker had been hardened by years of combat, but what set him apart was his ability to inspire those under his command. His mere presence gave his soldiers hope, and even as the enormity of the Zalrith threat loomed, they followed him with unwavering loyalty. Beside him was Captain Elena Marquez, the rising star of the fleet. A brilliant tactician, Marquez had earned her reputation by turning impossible odds into victories, using her intellect and adaptability to outwit the alien forces time and again. Now her skills were more crucial than ever. She understood that raw power alone wouldn't save them. It was creativity, resourcefulness, and cunning that would keep humanity alive for as long as possible. On the ground, the story was the same. General David West led Earth's planetary defense forces, a man known for his no-nonsense leadership style. With the planet under siege, it fell to him to inspire the billions of civilians now preparing for war. West's voice rang through every broadcast, calling on all of humanity to stand together, to unite in defense of their homeworld. It didn't matter if they were soldiers or civilians, everyone would have a role to play. Make no mistake, West had said in his final address to Earth's people, "This is a fight for survival. We are outnumbered, outgunned, and standing alone. But let me tell you this, we are human. We fight not just for ourselves, but for the future of our species. We fight for Earth, for every one of us. And we will not fall quietly." Across the remaining fleet, leadership emerged at all levels. Captains, lieutenants, and crew members all embraced the grim reality that the coming battle would determine not just the fate of humanity, but perhaps the fate of the galaxy. For all the losses they had suffered, they were not ready to admit defeat. Humanity's finest had risen to the challenge, and they would fight to the very last ship, the very last man. Preparations for the final stand were in full swing. Every human ship left in the fleet, no matter how old or battered, was readied for the coming onslaught. Crews worked around the clock to retrofit their outdated warships, knowing that they would face an enemy equipped with far superior technology. The last of their military stockpiles were being exhausted, but innovation bloomed from the necessity of survival. Engineers hastily adapted whatever resources they had, creating new weapon systems and defenses from scratch. Old, nearly obsolete ships were being outfitted with guerrilla warfare capabilities, transforming them into nimble and unpredictable threats. On the ground, massive orbital defense platforms were hastily constructed, bristling with every available weapon Earth's forces could muster. Earth's moons were fortified with hidden artillery batteries, shield generators, and defensive fighters. Though these preparations were a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity, there was an unspoken understanding among them all: they were woefully outgunned. No matter how well prepared, how brave, or how determined, humanity could not hope to match the sheer firepower of the Zalrith. Tension hung in the air like a thick fog. Every soldier knew that the moment they had feared for so long was drawing near. As the Zalrith fleet approached the Sol system, the human commanders ran their simulations over and over again. Each one ended the same way: humanity's defeat. But they didn't waver. They prepared, worked, and strategized, knowing full well that their end might be near. On the Dauntless, Riker and Marquez reviewed their final strategies. "They outnumber US 10-1, Riker said, staring at the tactical map. "But we faced worse odds before." Marquez gave a determined nod. "We can't outmuscle them, but we can outthink them." Guerrilla tactics, deception, hit and run. It's our only shot. Their final plan hinged on human unpredictability. Though their ships were no match for the Axalrith in a straight-up battle, they could use the environment to their advantage, exploiting asteroid fields, using decoys, and employing surprise attacks to buy themselves precious time. Time for what? No one knew, but there was a faint hope brewing among the ranks. As the preparations continued, strange phenomena began to emerge across the galaxy. Energy fluctuations of unknown origin were detected on the outer rim, where ancient star systems long thought barren suddenly began emitting faint but discernible signals. Humanity's intelligence networks picked up the chatter from other species across the galactic expanse. No one could explain it, but rumors began to spread among the human ranks. The Black Armada whispered one technician to another as they worked in the dimly lit bowels of a ship's engine room. They say it's waking up, though most dismissed it as mere fantasy. The legend of the Black Armada had begun to take on a life of its own. Soldiers whispered about the ancient fleet said to be powerful enough to turn the tide of any battle. Though the commanders didn't speak of it openly, the stories gave the troops something they desperately needed: hope. The Black Armada whispered one technician to another as they worked in the dimly lit bowels of a ship's engine room. They say it's waking up, though most dismissed it as mere fantasy. The legend of the Black Armada had begun to take on a life of its own. Soldiers whispered about the ancient fleet said to be powerful enough to turn the tide of any battle. Though the commanders didn't speak of it openly, the stories gave the troops something they desperately needed: hope. Admiral Riker received word from a deep space reconnaissance team that strange energy readings had been detected from a system previously thought dead. They had no clear explanation, but it was enough to make him pause. Something was happening out there, something they couldn't yet understand. Marquez, ever the pragmatist, voiced what many were thinking. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but if there's even a chance that this Black Armada is real. Riker shook his head. We can't rely on myths. We have to make our stand with what we have. But if it's real, well, we can hope. And then it came. The Axalrith fleet, vast and unstoppable, arrived at the edge of the Sol system. Their ships darkened the skies, massive shadows casting long stretches across the starry expanse. The sheer scale of their armada was enough to shake the resolve of even the most hardened soldiers. The battle was about to begin. Brace for impact, came the command. Humanity's final stand had arrived. The battle for Earth began with a fury that shook the very heavens. The Axalrith fleet descended upon the Sol system like an overwhelming tidal wave, their ships massive and bristling with weapons humanity had never before seen. From the command deck of the UNS Dauntless, Admiral Riker stood silently, his eyes locked on the tactical display as the first wave of Axalrith ships surged toward the defensive perimeter. Enemy vessels incoming, a junior officer barked, his voice trembling with the realization that this could very well be their last battle. Riker didn't flinch. Hold the line. Engage all defensive platforms. No one retreats. Humanity's fleet, though dwarfed in comparison to the Axalrith Armada, stood defiant. Old cruisers, hastily retrofitted destroyers, and a handful of advanced warships formed the defensive net around Earth and its colonies. Their only hope lay in delaying the inevitable as long as possible. The first salvo came from humanity's orbital platforms, massive, antiquated railguns launching kinetic projectiles into space. The barrage was fierce but largely ineffective against the Axalrith's advanced shielding. In response, the Axalrith unleashed their terrifying firepower. Gigantic beams of energy, so bright they were blinding, cut through the void, vaporizing human ships in an instant. Entire battalions of Earth's defense forces were annihilated before they even had a chance to respond. The technological gap between humanity and their alien foes was stark. But humanity did not break. Instead of standing toe-to-toe with the vastly superior enemy, they fought smart. Using hit-and-run tactics, smaller human vessels darted in and out of asteroid fields, launching surprise missile strikes on exposed Exalrith ships, then retreating into the cover of the debris. They jammed the Exalrith's targeting systems with electronic warfare, causing momentary chaos in their ranks. Still, it was clear that even with their best efforts, humanity was being pushed to the brink. "Admiral, we can't hold them for long," Captain Marquez warned, as another wave of Zalrith ships bypassed the outer defenses, drawing closer to Earth. Riker clenched his fists, knowing she was right. "We hold as long as we can, no matter the cost." For hours, the battle raged. Every minute felt like an eternity as the Axalrith advanced closer to Earth, tearing through humanity's defenses one layer at a time. The human fleet was being whittled down, ship by ship, but they fought on. Every captain, every soldier knew that their efforts would likely be in vain, but they were determined to buy Earth as much time as possible. The Axalrith, however, were relentless. Their ships formed tight, impenetrable formations, and no matter how many human ships managed to score a hit, the alien armada kept pressing forward. Even the most advanced human warships, with their state-of-the-art shields and weaponry, found themselves overwhelmed. On Earth, General David West coordinated the planetary defense forces. Missiles launched from silos on the surface, targeting the larger Zalrith battleships. Fighter squadrons buzzed around the atmosphere, engaging enemy fighters in desperate dogfights. Civilians huddled in underground shelters, listening to the constant bombardment that echoed from above. "Every second counts," West muttered to himself as he monitored the progress of the battle from his command center deep within Earth's fortified bunkers. He knew their chances were slim, but if they could hold out just a little longer, perhaps there was still hope. As the human fleet continued to falter, something changed. Just when all seemed lost, something unexpected happened. Deep in the far reaches of space, in a long-forgotten system, ancient technology that had been dormant for millennia began to stir. Sensors across the galaxy picked up strange energy signatures emanating from an uncharted region, a star system humanity had overlooked for centuries. On the Dauntless, the sensor officer's voice broke through the comms. "Admiral, we're detecting something." Unusual. Riker raised an eyebrow. "Unusual energy readings." "Massive ones, sir. Something just powered up in deep space, far beyond the Xalrith fleet's current position." Marquez looked over at the Admiral. The Black Armada. Riker's eyes widened. "It can't be." But even as he spoke, the mysterious signals grew stronger. Throughout the galaxy, ships and stations registered the same readings. At first, the Zalrith ignored it, too focused on crushing humanity's last defense. But then, as the energy signatures continued to intensify, the Dominion's Central Command took notice. Suddenly, from the depths of that forgotten star system, a fleet of massive, black warships emerged. These ships dwarfed anything humanity or even the Exalrith had ever seen. Their surfaces shimmered with ancient, advanced technology, black as night but radiating an eerie, unnatural energy. The Black Armada had awakened. With a burst of unimaginable power, the Armada surged into motion. Its warships, sleek, ominous, and powerful, began to make their way toward the heart of the battle. They moved with a precision and speed that defied logic, as if guided by an intelligence far beyond anything the current galactic powers could comprehend. Riker and Marquez stared at the display as the Armada's ships blipped onto their tactical map. "Is this real?" Marquez whispered, eyes wide in disbelief. "It's real," Riker confirmed, his voice low and filled with awe. The Black Armada. It's here. The moment the Black Armada entered the battle, the tide turned dramatically. One of the enormous black ships, larger than any human dreadnought, unleashed a weapon humanity had no name for. A pulse of energy rippled through the Axalrith ranks, and in an instant, entire sections of their fleet were obliterated. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before were vaporized, their shields and armor offering no protection against the ancient, unknown technology. On the ground, the humans watched in awe as the Armada's weapons decimated the enemy fleet. With every pulse of energy, more and more Axalrith ships were reduced to dust. The once dominating Armada of the Axalrith was now in full retreat, trying desperately to escape the destruction raining down upon them. But the Black Armada wasn't just powerful, it was terrifying. The ships moved with an eerie silence, operating independently from any known command. Humanity had no control over them, and yet the Armada fought as if it had been waiting for this moment all along. Riker watched the display in awe. "We didn't awaken it," he muttered. "It was waiting for something." For someone. Marquez stood next to him, equally astonished. "What is it? Who built it?" "I don't know," Riker admitted. "But it's saving us." As the battle raged on, the Axalrith fleet was scattered and in disarray. Humanity had been spared the final blow, but now they faced a new uncertainty. The Black Armada had awoken, and with it, new questions about what it truly was and what it wanted. At that moment, the battle for Earth was won, but the war had only just begun. The silence that followed the retreat of the Axalrith fleet was almost as deafening as the battle itself. In the space above Earth, the debris of both human and alien ships floated aimlessly, remnants of the epic conflict that had unfolded. For a moment, humanity breathed a collective sigh of relief. Their homeworld had been saved, but the cost had been staggering. From the command deck of the Dauntless, Admiral Riker stood, surveying the wreckage. The tactical display flickered, showing only a fraction of the human fleet still intact. Countless ships had been lost, and though they had won the battle, they had suffered heavily for it. Earth was no longer under immediate threat, but it was a hollow victory. The true cost of the battle was only beginning to sink in. Captain Marquez broke the silence. "We lost too many. So many didn't make it," Riker nodded gravely. "But we're still here. For now, at least." Though the Axalrith had retreated, the true aftermath was only just beginning. Humanity had been spared extinction, but with their fleet reduced to a shadow of its former self, they were vulnerable. And then there was the Black Armada, an ancient, terrifying force that had saved them, yet remained an enigma. The arrival of the Black Armada left humanity with a new and unsettling question: what now? They had no control over the Armada, no understanding of its origins or motives. The Armada had intervened just in time to save Earth, but its actions were not out of loyalty to humanity. There were whispers among the remaining fleet, rumors that the Armada had its own purpose. "Can we trust them?" Marquez asked, her brow furrowed in concern. "They destroyed the Axalrith, but what if they turn on us?" Riker stood in silence, unsure of the answer. The Black Armada had responded to the battle, but it wasn't under human command. It was as though the ancient fleet had its own agenda, one that humanity could neither predict nor understand. And yet they were now the possessors of this immense power, a power capable of reshaping the galaxy. But it was a double-edged sword. Whoever controlled the Armada could rule the stars, but with that power came immense responsibility and danger. The Galactic Coalition, already weakened by the Axalrith, was watching. They had seen humanity survive an invasion that should have wiped them out, but they had also seen the Black Armada. Fear and suspicion were growing. Would humanity become the next galactic superpower, or had they unleashed something they couldn't control? As the days passed, the discussions turned from military strategy to deep ethical debates among the surviving human leadership. The power of the Black Armada was undeniable, but with it came the weight of impossible choices. Should humanity seek to control the Armada, using its unmatched firepower to secure dominance in the galaxy? Or should they find a way to destroy it, ensuring that no one could ever wield such terrifying power? Admiral Riker and Captain Marquez sat with the Council of Earth's remaining military and political leaders. The room was tense as arguments flew back and forth. "We can't just ignore this," one politician insisted. "The Armada is the key to ensuring humanity's survival. With it, we could rebuild our fleets, protect our worlds, and finally put an end to the Zalrith threat once and for all." "But at what cost?" Marquez interjected. "We don't understand the Armada. We don't know why it awoke or what it wants. We can't control it, and if it turns against us, we're finished." Riker remained silent for a moment, weighing the options. "We have to be careful," he said finally. "Power like this corrupts. If we try to use the Armada for our own gain, we might become no better than the Axalrith. We fought to survive, not to conquer." There was also the question of the Armada's origins. Who had built it? And why had it awoken now, after so many millennia? The scientists and historians working tirelessly to unlock the Armada's secrets had come up with few answers. Some speculated that the Armada had been built by an ancient civilization that predated even the Coalition, one that had foreseen a threat far greater than the Axalrith. As the debates raged on, one thing became clear: the Armada's awakening wasn't just about the battle with the Axalrith. It was about something much bigger, something humanity hadn't even begun to comprehend. In the weeks following the battle, humanity began to rebuild. Earth's defenses were strengthened, and the surviving fleet was repaired as best as possible. Messages from across the galaxy poured in: congratulations from those who had witnessed the impossible, fear from those who now saw humanity in a different light. The Galactic Coalition, or what remained of it, reached out cautiously. They had seen the destruction the Armada was capable of, and they feared that humanity would now wield it as a weapon of domination. Some species were openly hostile, demanding the dismantling of the Black Armada, while others sought alliances, hoping to gain favor with what they perceived as the galaxy's new power. Humanity stood at a crossroads. Admiral Riker, now the de facto leader of Earth's defense forces, addressed a somber group of diplomats, military officers, and representatives from the Coalition. "The Black Armada is not ours to command," he said. "It intervened in our time of need, but it is not our weapon. We have a choice to make whether to seek control of this power, or to let it remain as it is, a force beyond our understanding. But I will tell you this: humanity did not fight this war to become conquerors. We fought to survive." As Riker's words echoed through the room, it was clear that humanity's future in the galaxy had changed forever. The Black Armada, mysterious and powerful, hung over them like a shadow. It had saved them from extinction, but its true purpose remained unknown.